Hey guys, welcome to part 3 of painting the sunset using oil paint. We finished up part 2 by touching up that sun reflection on the water, and now we are going to focus on the leaves and the vegetation in the foreground. So right now I'm working on some grass that's sticking up out of the water. I'm doing my first coat of paint with a bright orange-red color, and this is to show the way the light is hitting these blades of grass. I'm going to paint them with a darker color now so that we can tell that these are in shadow. But because these are right in front of that sunset, there is some orange-red color that you can see through those blades of grass as you're looking out into the sunset. So I wanted to make my first coat of paint with that orange-red color and then go back over it with the darker shadow tone. Now I'm adding more blades of grass farther away from our viewpoint. Because these are farther away from us, they are going to be much smaller than the blades of grass that are close to us. Again, I'm making up and down motions to put these little blades of grass in. I just made a horizontal line. That's an area where the grass is a little bit thicker. So to make thin little blades of grass coming up, I just made up and down vertical very thin lines, and to show areas where there are thicker patches of grass in the marsh, I did a horizontal line first, and then using my brush stroked it up and down from that horizontal line to show the blades of grass sticking up from this thicker brush area. And now we're moving on to the bushes that are even closer to us than those blades of grass we painted a little bit ago. We're now working on the bushes and the plants that are closest to us in the foreground. So I'm starting by painting some stems and branching them out from a central bottom base of the plant. And after I get those stems painted, I will start to paint individual leaves by lightly dancing the brush around, and we're painting the base of these plants thicker and darker than the tops of the plants. There's going to be less light coming through at the base of these plants, so I'm using a thicker application of paint there and making sure I leave some space in between my leaves at the top of the plant so we can still see what's behind it. Here I'm starting to add blades of grass that are closer to us, using sap green with ultramarine blue and raw umber and a little bit of yellow ochre. We're getting this faded dark green color. And I'm using the same method I was using before to make these strands of grass. Just nice long strokes up with the brush. The bushes closest to the sunset in the central portion of this painting are also going to have some of that red-orange color. I did it backwards here. I put the black down first, and now I'm adding that hint of red-orange just in little areas where light might be peeking through in the leaves. Next, I decided to add several more blades of grass in the area where the sunset is reflecting on the water. I started with a reddish brown color. These blades of grass are gonna have lighter shades since they're right in that sun reflection. So the grass blades that are right before that reflection of the sun and the orange part of the water have a brown red color, and the blades of grass that are in the bluer part of the sky are out of the direct sunlight area, so those ones are just going to be our dark green gray color. Here I'm starting to paint the tree that is in the foreground closest to us. It is going to provide a nice frame for this piece and add a lot of detail to the sky, or the top section of this painting, I should say. I started by just drawing some very loose limbs. We don't want any perfectly straight limbs here with this tree. They're all going to be a little bit wavy. And as the limbs grow farther from the main trunk, they're getting smaller, as you can see. And the leaves are all about the same size, but some of them are folded this way, some folded that way. So you want to just let your brush loosely dance around and just try on a piece of paper or a napkin before you put it on the canvas, just to see what it looks like, tapping your brush at different angles and see if you can get the appearance of leaves by practicing. Next, I worked in blocking in some shadow color here just to get a base for my plants in the foreground. Put in some subtle highlights in the plants in the corner there. Next, I started to add some highlights on those plants in the foreground. Using that same method I used for painting the leaves on the tree at the top of this painting, I let the brush move around freely and place the brush down at different angles to try to make the appearance of leaves. Making the plants in the foreground was a repetitive process of adding a shadow, then a highlight, then a shadow and a highlight, moving closer and closer to the very front of our view or the bottom of the canvas. To paint this foreground, I used various shades of green by mixing my cadmium yellow hue with ultramarine blue in some cases, with phthalo blue in some cases, with Prussian blue in some cases, and adding some reds to warm up the colors, adding some raw umber and some bluer tones to cool down the color. And for my final touches to this piece, I added some contrast by boosting the highlights on the plants in the foreground, especially those plants that are closest to the center of the piece where the sunlight is still hitting them. My last step to finish this piece was to add a couple leaves to the tree limb right there because that was bothering me for some reason. So now this piece is all done. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel to catch my weekly painting videos every Thursday night.